With gold prices continuing to reach new record highs, you have people that are rushing out there to try and cash in on this record gold price and are basically bringing in all their old gold jewelry and having it melted down. That way they can kind of try to capitalize on these all-time high gold prices. Gold hit $3,300 an ounce for the first time about a week ago and has come down a little bit since then, but is still hanging on very strong. And just a month ago, gold was at around $3,000 an ounce. This is a huge move in gold, and it is one of the best performing assets that you can own right now. Stock market, it's in the tank. Real estate market is flat or in the tank, maybe going up in certain parts of the country, depending on the neighborhood you live in. And I wanted to cover this because I think it highlights two fascinating things. One, that people recognize that gold actually has value, but only when times of crisis occur, like right now, when everything else is losing value and people see the value of gold going up. It reminds everyone that, hey, gold is real money. The second thing is it shows you that a lot of people are broke and desperate, which we talk about a lot here on this channel, and are looking for any possible way to bring in a little extra money. And if you have some gold jewelry sitting in a safe or a jewelry box or safety deposit box right now, a lot of people are taking that jewelry and bringing it in and getting the melt value for it. I mean, just to put things into perspective, the price of gold is up about 27% so far year to date, just since the beginning of 2025, while the stock market is down like 15% year to date. And if you calculate the losses in the stock market priced in gold, well, then they are much more severe because the 15% losses are priced in dollars. If you price those losses in gold, it is more than double the losses. The stock market's down over 30% since the beginning of this year. So when you price the stock market in gold, it is essentially a crash right now. Although I personally think it's a huge mistake for people to be selling any of their gold right now as it hits all-time highs. I know that can be tempting because people need the cash, but there's a high probability that gold is just going to continue going up in value as the dollar loses its value, especially if the dollar loses its world reserve currency status, which looks like could be happening sooner than later. And the sad part is some people are bringing in jewelry that was passed down for generations in their family that has just been sitting there collecting dust, and they're finally now starting to get rid of it. And on the one hand, I understand, like, okay, if you're never going to use it, you're never going to wear it, maybe it's time to get rid of it now that gold's at all-time high prices. I see that argument. But at the same time, it shows you that people are so desperate they're willing to give up a family heirloom right now in exchange for cash today. And it's especially sad when people are bringing in like antique jewelry, like stuff that's really special, one-of-a-kind stuff that you'll never really see again. And people are looking to melt down this kind of jewelry right now in exchange for cash. But people who are doing this say, like, you know what, the priorities in your life change. You know, do I want all this stuff laying around in my safe or my safety deposit box? The answer is usually no. They're like, it's time to let go of it and give me the money instead. But just know that if you're somebody out there that's looking to do this right now, then you're not going to get spot price for gold. If you're unfamiliar with what spot price is, it's the actual current price of the gold. You're going to always get less anytime you sell gold, even if it's already a pure gold coin, because this is how gold dealers make their money. They're always going to pay you under spot and charge you over spot when you want to purchase. It's just like when you go and buy and sell a car. You know, when you bring the car in for the trade-in, of course, the dealer is going to pay you less for the car than they're going to turn around and sell it for on their lot. That's how they make their profit. But when you bring in gold jewelry that needs to be melted down, for example, you're going to get even less, because not only are they going to pay you under spot to make a profit, but there are also costs associated with melting that jewelry down into its purest form of gold, and that's an additional expense that they're going to incur, that they're going to put on you. And the other thing that's happening now that the price of gold has surged to new record highs is that thefts at jewelry stores has started to increase. In fact, in LA this week, there were millions of dollars in gold and jewels stolen from a jewelry store, and the burglars actually tunneled into the shop through multiple reinforced walls. So people are really using some, elaborate plans and equipment to break into these jewelry shops and steal the gold right now because it's so valuable. And they ended up getting away with $10 million worth of gold and jewelry. Some people are even going to the extent that if they have a loved one that passes away right now and they have a gold tooth, they're asking the mortician to, yank that sucker out. I'm bringing it to the pawn shop. And I'm not making this stuff up, guys. Go ahead and read the story below. It is just crazy the amount of things and the lengths that people will go to sometimes in order to, make a little extra money. Every time I see that in the movies, it always makes me laugh. You see somebody buried with like a necklace or a ring or something, then once everybody walks away from the funeral site, then you have the gravedigger go in there and take everything. And obviously, people trading in gold is not a clear signal that we're going into a recession, but I think it's a healthy marker nonetheless that shows that the economy is not doing so great. Another thing that people might try to do when the economy is not doing so well, especially if they lose a job, is they resort to gig work. Like, this is an easy way for you to just jump in and start making a little extra cash right after you lose a job. You can basically start earning in less than a week most of the time if you start driving Uber, Grubhub, Instacart, any of these things. But the problem is becoming very quickly with this gig work is that a lot of people are doing it, guys. And you know what happens when you have an oversupply of something and not enough demand? The price or the value of it goes down. So a lot of people who are doing this right now are not making the money that they're hoping for. And competition is becoming more fierce among gig workers. They talked to one person who has been doing the gig work and doing the ride sharing apps since 2019, so basically before the pandemic. And at first, it provided a good source of extra income, and a lot of people in particular signed up for this type of work during the pandemic when they lost a job and wanted to bring in a little extra money. And this is one of the reasons that I have told people that I believe the unemployment rate is artificially low in this country, because it's easy to just go and start doing gig work rather than file for unemployment, and you will make more money and it will happen faster than filing for unemployment. But going back to this woman who's been doing Uber since 2019, she made about $66,000 in gross earnings in 2019. Not too bad for something that's supposed to be like a side hustle. That's more than a lot of full-time jobs pay. But in 2024, she earned about half as much, even though she worked a similar number of hours. So imagine your pay gets cut in half doing the same amount of work, the same amount of hours worked. That's not too good. So right now, this person that's been doing this for the past, 5 years, 6 years essentially, says that it's not really worth it anymore. And now she's applying for full-time jobs and saving up some money to hopefully open up a food truck in the future. And I think that is really smart. She's probably going to do much better with that food truck than anything else, because being a small business owner and working for yourself, not only are you taking home every dollar that you're earning and working for, but it's just a whole new level of self-satisfaction that you don't get working for somebody else. So good for her. But here's the other kicker, guys. If you're using your car for any sort of ride sharing or delivery service, you are responsible for all of the repairs and fuel costs on that vehicle. And those things have gone up tremendously over the past 5 years. At the same time, the pay for doing that type of work is going down. It's not a very good combination. She actually said that the number one time to make money right now on the ride-sharing apps, and this is a good tip for anybody out there who wants to still do this, is that when the weather is bad, when it's raining or when it's snowing, something like that, a lot of the drivers stay home and they're not out driving for Uber or Instacart or whatever, and then you can make more money during those times. And now a lot of people who are particularly applying to work for Instacart are saying it's taking weeks, if not months, to get approved. And the reason is Too many people are trying to do it. The CEO of Instacart came out and said that our shopper supply is very healthy. In an earnings call, he said that in February of 2025. In fact, we still continue to have a wait list in most cities. So a lot of people are turning to this, and this could be a clear sign that unemployment is going to tick up in the coming months, because as more people apply for this gig work that used to be quick and easy to get, and now that it's becoming basically non-existent or non-profitable, you're going to see a lot more people filing for unemployment, and that's when the real recession is going to hit, guys. That's when it's going to become official. That's when it's going to be no longer deniable by anybody who's been denying it all these years. And this is what happens when you start to see small pieces of the economy all start to break apart all at the same time. And that's exactly what we're witnessing right now. There is a company, though, called Arise that offers call center and other customer service gig work to businesses. And they said right now they are still hiring new people. And this might be a more stable form of gig work, as different companies need different amounts of human resources at different times. So apparently there's more steady work available with something like this. And I also want people to consider the fact that when the economy is not going well, like right now, you're just going to see less people who are going to be interested in hiring an Uber or getting Uber Eats, or getting their groceries delivered with Instacart. A lot of people are going to start doing these things themselves again in order to save the extra money. So not only are you getting paid less for the same amount of work, but the demand for these services might be falling in the future as well, at the same time that everybody's applying to do more of this kind of work. So what do you think is going to happen there? And one of the tips that I've given people on this channel who are looking to make a little extra money is to do gig work. But now I think my approach to it is going to be more like, maybe you should be looking into starting your own side hustle business. Just like this woman who's doing it now, she's looking at starting a food truck. I'm not saying you should do that, but it's something that's a possibility, right? It's something that people can do to work for yourself, and you know your area, you know your market, you know how to make a little extra money where you live. Just like people here in Miami that, start little tourism businesses and give tours and do Airbnb experiences or have Airbnbs for rent, things like that. There's always something you can do in your local area that there's a demand for. I'll tell you what there's not so much of a demand for right now is Burger King. Because Burger King is closing down about 75 restaurants across Georgia and Florida right now due to bankruptcy. And this is mainly because one of their big franchisees is going bankrupt. So Consolidated Burger Holdings, which operated 75 restaurants across Georgia and Florida, just quietly closed down 20 locations right before filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy last week. So now they're down to 57 stores, and more closures could be on the way as they look to cut costs during their bankruptcy. And over the past couple of years, there's been some other large franchisees who have filed for bankruptcy and closed down Burger Kings as well. And the reason? Just like any other business right now, struggling due to rising food and labor costs, inflation, and slowing foot traffic since the pandemic. Fast food's no longer cheap. It's no longer the deal it used to be. The same reason that all these other restaurants are suffering, like I've talked about on the channel. McDonald's has been throwing every trick in the book at their customers, trying to get people to come back in, and it's not really working. Burger King said that they're going to come in and replace their struggling franchisees with what they call high-performing operators to improve service and experience at the affected stores. I guess you could improve customer service. That's an improvement that can be made pretty much anywhere in the world right now, in any business. But you only get so much blood from a stone, you know what I mean? If people aren't interested in, $8 burgers at Burger King anymore, then they're going to have to find a new way. And it's going to be called lowering prices. And if you can't do that, then you're probably not going to be able to bring the business in. This is the same fundamental principle that is affecting everything right now that a lot of people are missing. All these major economists, why is the housing market so slow? It's because nobody can afford it. Just like nobody sees the value in going out for a fast food meal right now. Same thing. Nobody wants to pay $25 to eat at a fast food restaurant. For that price, you can go to a diner and sit down and get a real meal maybe for even less money than that. And one other thing we can look at that shows us the economy is indeed slowing down is layoffs. And another story that was sent to me this past week is a local layoff story that wasn't really covered much in the local media, so I wanted to cover it here. And that is Mack Trucks in Macungie, Pennsylvania are laying off about 350 workers. And part of the reason they're doing this apparently is the tariffs. Apparently the manufacturer is saying that the tariffs are crushing the core US industries like trucking and manufacturing, because obviously they import a lot of items in order to make trucks go, or really any automobile. And here's the thing, these are not just little Mickey Mouse jobs. These are good paying union jobs that the community cannot afford to lose. You know, people who work these jobs are people that, you know, maybe have 2 kids and a wife at home. So we're talking about the main breadwinner of a household losing a job right now. We're not talking about a teenager getting fired from Starbucks. And I'm not going to talk too much about the tariffs. We've already talked about it. I've already kind of given my opinion on it. And also there really isn't much to say, considering that, you know, there's been a lot of instability surrounding the tariffs, and nobody really knows what's even going to happen tomorrow or next week with it. So spending a lot of time discussing it is kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. But the point is that a lot of people are being affected by the tariffs, even if they're on or off, even if they've just been threatened to happen. You know, real people are losing jobs over this right now, and it's making an impact. So that's not good. However, like I've stated many times before on the channel, in order for things to get better in this country, they are going to have to get worse first. And if the tariffs do somehow lead to a situation where America has more economic prosperity than before, then I think it will end up being a good thing in the end. But it's important to highlight the short-term consequences that everybody's feeling right now. And unfortunately, this is why so many people vote to kick the can down the road when it comes to financial problems, both in the government and in their own household, because it just seems easier to do that. It's easier to keep what you have today and keep a lifestyle, or keep the stability you have now in sacrifice of future stability or future lifestyle. And that might feel good in the short term, but in the long run can have some major consequences. So let us all know if you've traded in some of your gold jewelry recently and how much you got from it. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.